You probably think Apple or BlackBerry invented the smartphone, but a clunky black brick beat them by more than a decade. The very first smartphone actually debuted a full 13 years before the iPhone, and it was such a massive, futuristic failure that almost everyone completely forgot it existed. To truly understand how mind-bending this device was, we have to travel back to the early 1990s. In 1992, the landscape of technology was incredibly primitive compared to today. Personal computers were beige boxes running text-based DOS operating systems. Cell phones were strictly for wealthy business people, and they were the size and weight of actual building bricks, designed to do exactly one thing: make phone calls. If you wanted to check your schedule, you carried a paper planner. If you wanted to do math, you carried a calculator. If you wanted to send a document, you had to find a fax machine. But an American electronics designer at IBM named Frank J. Canova saw a different future. Canova realized that microchips and wireless technology were finally shrinking down to a size where they could be crammed into a single, handheld device. While working on a team assembled to enliven IBM's product line, Canova and his boss, Jerry Merkle, realized that expanding laptop memory cards could be adapted to run services on a portable phone. They pitched the concept of the phone of the future to IBM management. Management loved the idea so much that they tasked Canova's team with building a working prototype in just 15 weeks. The team worked grueling 80-hour weeks to get the device, codenamed Sweet Spot, ready for its public debut. On November 16, 1992, IBM unveiled the Sweet Spot prototype at the Comdex Computer and Technology Trade Show in Las Vegas. The reaction was explosive. The device seamlessly combined a mobile phone and a personal digital assistant, or PDA. It even showed off static images of maps, weather, and stock market prices, predicting an era of connected apps long before the commercial internet was even ready for consumers. The prototype was such a hit that the very next day, Frank Canova was featured on the front page of the money section of USA Today, proudly holding the device. Following the massive success of the prototype, IBM sprinted to turn the concept into a commercial product, now codenamed Angler. They initially approached Motorola to manufacture the phone, but Motorola turned them down out of fear that IBM would become a direct competitor in the mobile market. So, IBM struck a deal with Mitsubishi Electric to physically build the device. The telecommunications company Bell South stepped in to provide the cellular network, and their marketing executives gave the device its final consumer-friendly name, the Simon Personal Communicator. The name was derived from the children's game Simon Says, because the phone was designed to be incredibly simple and easy to remember. When you look at the specs of the IBM Simon, it is astonishing how perfectly it laid the blueprint for modern technology. Instead of a bulky physical keypad, the front of the Simon was dominated by a 4.5-inch tall, monochrome LCD touchscreen. Users could navigate a graphical interface, called the Navigator, using their finger or an included stylus. It ran on a modified DOS operating system, basically borrowing desktop computing architecture to stay nimble. The built-in applications were nothing short of magic for the time. The Simon included an address book, a calendar, a calculator, a world time clock, and an electronic notepad. It even featured a predictive keyboard that would guess the next letters a user was most likely to type, displaying only a portion of the keyboard at a time. But its real superpower was communication. Beyond just making calls on the analog AMPS network, you could send and receive emails, receive cellular pages, and interact with faxes. You could literally pull out the stylus, draw a sketch directly onto the screen, and have that drawing sent instantly to a fax machine across the country. It was an absolute marvel of engineering. But despite accurately predicting the future of computing, the IBM Simon was doomed to fail for 3 very practical reasons: its size, its price, and its fatal battery. First, the size. The Simon was enormous. It was 8 inches tall, 1.5 inches thick, and weighed 18 ounces, which is over a full pound. Carrying it around was like carrying a literal brick in your pocket. Second, the price. Originally slated for a May 1994 release, software bugs related to the faxing capabilities delayed the launch until August 16, 1994. When it finally hit shelves across Bell South's 15-state service area, it cost $899 with a 2-year contract, or $1,099 without one. Adjusted for inflation today, that is roughly equivalent to $2,000. It was an incredibly expensive gamble on an unproven piece of technology. And finally, the nail in the coffin: the battery life. Powering a touchscreen, a modem, and a computing operating system all at once required immense energy. As a result, the Siemens nickel-cadmium battery would completely drain in just 1 single hour of use. You had 60 minutes to make your calls, check your emails, and send your faxes before your futuristic wonder device became an expensive paperweight. Because of these hurdles, the Simon flopped. It sold only about 50,000 units before Bell South quietly discontinued it in February 1995, just 6 months after it launched. IBM actually started working on a smaller, sleeker successor model called the Neon Fink. But the project was eventually abandoned, and the company bowed out of the smartphone race entirely. The term smartphone wasn't even officially used until Ericsson launched a prototype a few years later. For over a decade, the world went back to using flip phones with physical buttons. But Frank Canova and the IBM team proved that a phone could be so much more than just a phone. The Simon was a glorious, clunky 1-hour battery failure that planted the seeds for the touchscreens we stare at today. And that's another forgotten story from Circuit and Chalk. If you love uncovering the blueprints of our past, hit subscribe and join the community. Your likes help these forgotten stories survive. What retro tech should we sketch next? Let me know in the comments.